Welcome to the Sun today for the 8th of February 2025. This is a different picture from what I normally show you. This is an SDO AIA 171 angstrom picture, which is about 750,000 degrees, and it shows a lot of the structure of the corona in terms of magnetic loops. Now you can see all the large scale loops emanating from those regions in the northwest that I've been talking about for several days. But look at the east limb. There are several large structures there, and so that's very promising for new regions to be coming over the east limb. So let's keep an eye on that over the next couple of days. An overall summary: activity remains relatively high. The sunspot number was down to 125. There is one new unnumbered region on the disk. That might be the return of region 3963. The flare activity, we had 14 C flares, which is more than we had yesterday, but only one M flare. And we had 5 coronal mass ejections, which was the same as yesterday. Solar wind speed is also about the same as yesterday. And the Earth's magnetosphere was very quiet. And that's mainly because the BZ component of the interplanetary field, that's the vertical component, was positive. And so that rarely interacts with the Earth's magnetosphere. There are 11 regions on the disk, including one new one that is right on the northeast limb. As I said, the sunspot number is down to 125. Sunspot area is also down to 760. Some people refer to coronal holes as a crack in the sun. This one indeed looks like a crack in the sun, but of course isn't. Coronal holes appear dark because, first of all, they are very low density, and the intensity of X-rays goes as the square of the density. And also, these particular structures are cool material, and they may not be emitting very much in the wavelength band of this helium-2 which is about 50 to 70,000 degrees. So that's why they appear dark. Now the extension from sun center towards the limb has grown some more in the last day and is looking like a substantial region. Now if that aligns with the Earth at any time as it crosses the disk, we could be in for nearly a week of high-speed solar winds. The main body of the coronal hole, the V-shaped thing west of the sun center, is relatively narrow, so if it does cause any effect, it'll be less than a day. We can see the polar coronal hole quite clearly now. And why can we see a northern polar coronal hole, not a southern one? The reason why we could see a northern polar coronal hole and not a southern one is that the tilt angle of the solar rotation axis is tilted slightly towards us, and so we could see the northern hemisphere a little more clearly than the south. So the south may in fact have its own coronal hole forming, but we can't see it yet. We'll have to wait for a few months for the tilt to go back the other way before we can see that. The planetary KP index is at long last showing some sign of life. It's varying between 1 and 4, which is a distinct improvement over the last 2 or 3 days. However, we've still not had any geomagnetic storm because really the BZ component, as I mentioned before, is positive, so there's unlikely to be any reconnections in the Earth's magnetosphere causing a geomagnetic storm. The solar wind speed is stubbornly at about 350 kilometers per second, which is quite slow, and the temperature is quite low. It's just about 20,000 degrees, which means the solar wind is more likely to be coming from the lower levels of the solar atmosphere rather than the coronal levels. We just had one M flare today, so it wasn't a particularly exciting day. Quite a few C flares, some quite close to becoming an M but didn't quite make the grade. Let's take a look at the coronal mass ejection activity today. We had 5 CMEs, the same as yesterday. As I said, the solar wind speed is quite low at 350 kilometers per second. So I'm going to show you a C2 coronagraph movie. Initially that's the small high resolution field of view, and then follow that with a C2 plus a C3 SOHO coronagraph movie, which allows you to see the bigger field of view. And now for tomorrow's forecast. It looks like the sunspot number will start declining fairly soon. That will mean that flare activity will also moderate. Because of the presence of that coronal hole, the solar wind speed should increase the next day or two. And I've been saying that for a couple of days now and it hasn't, but I suspect it will. And if that happens, there should be increasing geomagnetic activity if the BZ component starts turning negative. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Stay safe until next time. Goodbye.